B-A-T. It's in the name.
This episode of the Helping Healing Humor
Sons of Blunder
podcast is brought to you in partnership with ministryleague.com. We would love for more people to discover this show, so please rate and review us on iTunes or your podcast provider. Feel free to share on your social media and subscribe at benandtravis.com for the free ebook, 28 Days of Focused Living.
Welcome in to the Helping Healing Humor Sons of Blunder podcast with Ben Hayes and Travis Creasy. We've got, obviously, Will Mahan joining us as always, the man, the myth, the legend himself, Will the Thrizzle. And then we've got the official Barner and prognosticator of this here podcast, Blake Hollimon. Fellas, how you doing? We'll start with Ben. You doing okay?
I'm doing great. Just glad to be here. Excited for what's coming up. Of course, by the time everybody hears this, it will already be said and done, the national championship game. So hoping we're celebrating and not mourning on when this podcast comes out on Tuesday.
Will?
And I'm doing good. You may hear some screams, may have a little guest pop in the door. So just be ready if you hear it, because controlling Emmy, it can be a little tough. She's a little sneaky. Got a quick first step. So if you hear it, that's who it is. But I'm doing really, really well.
The cuteness of the show will go through the roof. So that's always a positive. Blake,
Right.
How you doing, man?
Doing good. I'm just thankful you guys for some reason keep inviting me back to be on the panel here. So
Got to keep us humble.
yeah,
Got to keep us humble.
ready to roll.
Well, I just figured
the holy
that,
man.
At least, if things don't go well for the national championship, at least one of us will be happy on that Tuesday. So that I'm assuming that would be you. You won't be heartbroken if the Tide comes up a little short, and preferably in the most heartbreaking fashion. But we are here, and the point of this episode of the Sons of Blunder is going to be picking our 2020 all BATify team, the football team, and we're going to be sticking with the amateurs. We may pick people from high school, very underclassmen, I think may have made some of the lists, all the way up to fifth-year seniors going into this year's draft. So we're going to be sticking with the amateurs and picking position by position. I have the trenches, maybe not the most exotic of places, most interesting of places, but as a football coach, and anybody who watches football knows that as the front lines go the rest of the team. So I'll be covering that. Ben, what have you got for us?
I'm going to have the wide receivers and the cornerbacks, some of my favorite positions, because there's no better play in football than a pick six. And I always enjoy that little play, even though that's not technically a play. And wide receivers, of course, are fun to watch too. So
there you go. Will, what you got for us tonight?
I have got the tight ends and the hard-hitting safeties. So the sneaky tight ends and then the heavy hitters.
All right, Blake, what you got for us?
Going to take on the running backs and the linebackers. I feel like both of those were my missed callings in life.
I like the phrasing of taking on, because those two, obviously the groups that we've kind of matched up are the ones who'd be taking on each other. But all I think about linebackers and running backs is meeting in that hole and figuring out who's going to win that battle more times than not. And like I said, I've got the offensive line, and I guess we will do defense. You guys good with doing defense? We'll make our way through that, and I'll jump on the defense. I'll be doing the defensive line, and I'll jump in. And if you guys got any comments about the picks here, and we're not trying to cast a wide net. We're not trying to be fair here. There are no participation trophies. We're going to be picking from our knowledge and whatever we could Google. And so, like I said, we'll be sticking with the amateurs. And the first one that I'm going to mention is certainly an amateur. He's a guy who played football for me, came in as a sophomore. This past year was his senior year. He played defensive end for us at Riverside, number 15, Michael Whidden. This guy is really tall and skinny, which is probably not what you're looking for in a defensive end anywhere else but 8-man football. But this is a guy who has a motor, and you could just watch him play. And he's one of those guys that if the play's away from him, he's going to keep coming. He might even get knocked on his rear end at the starting of the play. He's going to get right back up, and he may be the guy that sacks the guy on the other side of the field. And so Michael Whidden's going to be probably my weak side defensive end, just because he can chase something down. He can certainly get skinny and hard to touch. And then at my other defensive end, I'm going to go with a guy that's not much older than Michael Whidden. I believe he's a true freshman. He plays for the Crimson Tide. I'm going to go with Will Anderson, who I think is still leading. If not, he's at the top going into the Rose Bowl. He was leading the conference in sacks, and he didn't even record a sack till maybe at least halfway through the season, if not 3/4 of the season, and had like 7 sacks in 3 games or something crazy like that. So he's going to be that strong side defensive end, putting pressure on the quarterback. And then my inside defensive tackles, and I think we're working from a 4-3, 4-man front, 3 defensive guys, 7 in the box, that type of defensive setup. And I'm going to go with inside. I'm going to go and be a little bit of a homer again. I'm going to go Christian Barmore, who's just turned it on as well. That defense at Alabama was kind of suspect early in the season. And then they kind of turned it on after Ole Miss getting punched in the mouth. And I think that, man, I'm really hoping that that's not what we face this coming Monday night. Of course, that's already in the bag by this point, but he's really kind of pushing the pocket. Early in the season, they weren't getting home, but here towards the end, they've been really kind of making some waves and causing some chaos, him and Anderson together. And then my final inside guy is Davion Nixon. And this is the second guy this is the second defensive tackle that's supposed to come off the board in this spring's draft. And he plays for Iowa. And of course, that holds a special place in all of our hearts due to their awesome tradition of waving at the hospital, the kids in the hospital up there. So that's my defensive front. I think that's a really strong in the pass game defensive front. I'm sure that they can hold their own in the run game as well, but probably a little pass defensive heavy there on the front, pushing the pocket. Of course, obviously in high school, the focus is more probably stopping the run. But at the college level, it's certainly flipped over to having to stop the pass and play a lot of different deals. So I guess we'll make our way back to linebackers. You guys got any comments on the D-line?
Sounded pretty solid.
Yeah, Will Anderson is balling out this year. So great name, by the way. But
Yep.
Solid guy.
Great answer. All right, Blake, if you don't have anything on the D-line, man, take it away at the linebacker spots.
All right. Well, your D-line is supposed to plug up the holes and get after the quarterback, but they're supposed to make way for the linebackers to make the tackles. The defensive line really sets up how successful the linebackers are. The first guy, I'm probably the top guy on my list. He was the Butkus Award winner this year. If you're going amateur linebacker, you can't go any better than the person who wins this award every year. His name is Jeremiah Owusu Koromoa. He's from Notre Dame. He made several plays last week.
He did.
When Alabama played against him. He was sticking his nose in there and trying to stop that potent Alabama offense. So he's first on my list.
That's why you get paid the big bucks, Blake, saying names like that. That's why we bring you in.
I know. I practiced a lot off stream here, so I'm glad I could nail that for you guys. Well, Google can spell it, and that's all that matters. My next 2 picks here, I'm going to sound like a homer. Alabama, their linebackers are kind of weak. A couple of their linebackers are a little bit weaker, so I couldn't go with an Alabama linebacker, so I had to go with 2 Auburn guys. The first guy is Owen Papo. He's number 0 for Auburn. He's kind of a hybrid linebacker. He can run, He can cover. He's only a sophomore this year, but I think as he continues to get stronger and faster, I think he's going to be really, really good for Auburn for the next couple of years. My next guy is his season was cut short due to injury. He had a wrist issue, but his name is KJ Britt. Man, he was like a 3-star coming out of high school, but that guy will hit you in the hole just like what Travis was talking about. So again, just for Will, I'll say this guy's name again: Jeremiah Owusu Koramoah, KJ Britt, and Owen Papo.
So I'm assuming the Notre Dame guy would be your Mike, the guy in the middle.
Yeah, that guy's going to be in the middle. Owen Papo is going to run around and drop into coverage, and then KJ Britt's going to be there to bust somebody if they come running too. So
there you go. All right, Ben, you want to give us your DBs are going to be playing up there close to the line of scrimmage?
I will. I got 2. One actually from college and one from high school, and I'm really going to seem like a homer here because I've got one Alabama and one Mars Hill. The first is Patrick Surtain, one of the best cornerbacks in the nation. He has done pretty well going in probably going to be, they're suspecting about 13th or so in the draft. I don't know. He may go earlier than that. But and then the other one is going to be Peyton Higgins. Peyton was a cornerback for Mars Hill. He was also a running back. And so I actually was going to pick him as a wide receiver. I was thinking, I know he caught a bunch of passes, but I think it was more out of the backfield, sort of like we see with Alabama. But for no other reason, I've got to pick him because I don't know that we really had special teams, but he was a kickoff returner, set the state record for kickoff returns in Alabama. And if I'm not mistaken, he tied a national record for that. And I think I was just looking at some of his numbers. He finished the year finished his career with 100 touchdowns, 8,945 yards total in his career. So just lights out, going to play for Troy. And so I had to pick him. So I got Patrick Surtain and Peyton Higgins.
So on the return, the one that broke the record or set the record, right? Like somebody else caught the kick.
That's right.
And pitched it back to him, and then he housed it in the state championship game. So that's just a cool story.
Yeah, it was like right at the end of the game, and Hunter Kilpatrick, I believe, is the one who fielded the ball and turned around and tossed it to him, and he broke like one tackle and was gone. And
nice.
It was solid.
Straight up the gut, too. You just take it to the house.
Well, we like those dual threat guys. I like having those guys that can do just a little bit of everything. Wow. I'm sure we got a few more of those.
And I was mad we gave up a touchdown there, because everybody likes, you hate giving up those last couple of touchdowns at the end of the game when you could have put a goose egg up. But if it hadn't been for those, he wouldn't have got a chance to return it. So pretty sweet.
All right, Will, give us those thumpers on the back end who kind of are hybrids of cornerbacks and linebackers.
Yeah. One of my favorite things in college football is wide receiver coming across the middle, safety, just laying the wood. So I'm going to be a homer just like Ben. I'm going to go one from Alabama, one from Mars Hill. Love safeties. If I still had one of our former youth group guys up in Tennessee by the name of Kenneth Pruitt, made me love safeties. He was about 5'7", 130 pounds, but he broke the ribs of a couple of guys up there in Tennessee, just laying them out. So I always kind of enjoyed watching the safeties ever since we had him in our youth group up there. But first one I'm going to go with is Jordan Battle. He's a safety at Alabama, underclassman. And it kind of reminds me of one of those Mark Barron top safeties. I mean, he's going to lay everything out there. Seems to kind of fit Saban's what he wants, can stuff the run, but can also cover and lay a guy out when he needs to. So really like watching him. And then I'm going to go even younger than Ben here, and I'm going to go with Hanson, the little Hanson at Mars Hill, who played
different Hanson. Griffin Hanson.
Griffin Hanson played quarterback, but also played safety And I didn't get to watch a lot of Marcel games, listen to him on the radio, but it sounded like he would get a pick six just about every game. And then ultimately in the state championship this year, ended up knocking the quarterback out of the game, hit him so hard.
The quarterback knocked the other quarterback out of the game, which is impressive.
Tone setter.
Yeah. Seems like, those safeties, anybody that can just lay that smack, pretty cool to me. So I'm going to go the Homer style as well and go with Griffin out of Marcel and Jordan Battle out of Alabama.
All right. Awesome. Well, I guess if we've all covered our defense, I think those were all real solid picks. I'd take any of those guys and go into battle. No pun intended off of Will's picks, but good stuff. And I guess we'll flip it over to the offensive side of the ball, and I'll start us off with our offensive line. And I'm just going to be right out the gate. Probably, if I could pick really a player of the year for Alabama, probably not from playmaking. I think that one of you, whoever has wide receivers, will probably throw that guy in there. But just a fun guy, throwback football player would be the start of the middle of my offensive line. I'd have to go with Landon Dickerson, the transfer from Florida State into the Crimson Tide, who, just seems like he loves to play football. He loves to be on the offensive line. And being a coach myself, that's one way to endear yourself to me is, getting down there, loving to get your hands dirty and get after it. And he just seemed to love the physicality. Also a character. Ben was mimicking his little dance
every time they jump offside.
Yeah, he'd point. Yeah,
and tap their helmets and everything else.
If you're not an Alabama fan, that's probably the most annoying thing of all. Yeah, and especially if you're a defensive lineman, that's annoying. But you got to love it. He goes down against Florida, and the entire sideline comes out to pat him on the head and show their appreciation. And you just don't see stuff like that nowadays very often. You've got guys who like each other, obviously, but for the whole team to be that way says a lot about him. And of course, he received the award, the Remington Trophy, and his entire offensive team came on the stage with him. So he just seems like a guy that you'd like to hang around with, although rough and tough. And so he's going to be my center. At right tackle, I'm going to go down to the high school ranks, and this guy actually was on the CYC stage with us last year. He plays guard for Marcel, the state champions. They've been the state title 3 years running, won two out of the last three down in Alabama. And I'm going to go with Cooper Halton from Marcel Bible School at right guard, my right tackle. My left tackle we're going to go back to Tuscaloosa. And the guy who won an award the other night, Alex Leatherwood, this guy just is a smart guy. Like, I've read a couple of things that he's written. Very smart, very articulate, and just a monster of a human being, just a mountain of a man who really, the thing that's amazing about these guys to me in the defensive line is just how fast they are and how large they are. Like physics, these people defy physics. And people want to talk about making the game safer. And it's like, until you limit how big and fast they are, simple physics is just going to keep the game brutal, to say the least. So Alex Leatherwood at left tackle. Right guard, I'm going to Notre Dame. Tommy Kramer, I believe is how you call this. But Notre Dame was dominant up front all year long. Of course, they had their hands full against Alabama. But if you remember, they ran the ball pretty effectively against the Tide.
They were big.
They were just large human beings. And then my other guard is going to come from Clemson, Josh Simpson. So that's the big uglies up front for the 2020 all BATify team. And so now we'll kick it over. I guess let's go to quarterback. Who's got quarterbacks?
Didn't we all have a quarterback?
We did all get to pick a quarterback. You're right.
I'll pick one.
I'm glad I thought about that. All right, Ben, you got yours ready?
Who am I taking as quarterback?
Yeah.
Ooh. Well, that's tough because there's just such a wide open field this year. You had some great ones. You got Justin Fields and Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones, and you got a bunch of them. It's hard for me to pick, but I think, man, I'm gonna be the guy. One of us has got to go with Mac Jones. I'm gonna go with him. I don't know. I mean, obviously he won all the awards. I think part of that probably is due to Trevor Lawrence's, being out some of the year or whatever else. But he's just, I don't care if you want to call him a game manager or not. He's a very good game manager, if that's what it is. I mean, you look at the way he throws the ball around. He doesn't make a ton of mistakes. He will occasionally, but he's just he seems smart. He seems, he's got a cannon of an arm. I think if I were just putting a team together, I would never have any issue with going, hey, I want that guy on my team. Just because he's smart with it, and he just does what he's supposed to do. And if you want to call that game manager, then whatever, but he's got so many other weapons around him. That's all he has to be. Just throw the ball to the right guys and let them do their thing. Because how many of his passes were just short passes that Devontae or somebody took for 100 yards or 70 yards or whatever else? So a lot of his yards were these guys doing stuff after the fact, which is
especially because people have started to take the deep ball away from him.
So he just took what he got.
Those decisions, yeah.
Took what he got.
What about you, Will? You got one?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I love a running quarterback. I've always enjoyed that. Fields really impressed me when he threw it 62 yards on a dime, and it barely looked like he loaded up to throw it. And so I think I would probably go with Justin Fields. But if Fields got hurt, I would go with Clemson's backup. If y'all have heard of him, he played when Trevor Lawrence got hurt. He's Hawaiian.
I want to hear you say his last name.
Yeah, I'm not even going to try. It's
he was solid.
That dude is huge.
So we got your first team and your second team. That's nice.
Yeah, I've just always enjoyed the running quarterbacks.
Just take them all, Will. Just take them all.
And maybe that's because Alabama's never really – because, even Tua wasn't necessarily a running quarterback. But, and I think what separated those guys from Jalen while he was at Alabama was, Jalen wasn't always the most accurate, at Alabama from time to time. But I think that just make the game more fun, outside of I love defense, most are the
make it more frustrating, that's for sure.
Yeah. But
just for the record here, his name is DJ Uiagalelei.
Yeah,
that's his name.
Yeah, Lele. I knew the first part, but that dude's gonna be special. I don't think Clemson's gonna have to really rebound after Lawrence because that guy's impressive.
They just reload, man. It's just the way it is.
I'd go with Fields as the first guy.
Blake.
Well, Travis, I'll take this load off of you. I do not know why you guys have not picked Trevor Lawrence yet. He's the clear cut. Like him. Exactly. It's all this homer garbage.
He's the boogeyman, man. It's not that he's not. We don't think he's good. He's just the boogeyman.
I think he's amazing, but I can't pick him.
So Trevor Lawrence, he's going to be the number one pick. I mean, it's unanimous. He's already got Jacksonville Jaguars gear. He can make all the throws. He runs the system at Clemson as good as anybody has ran it for them, in my opinion. Over the last several years, they've had a lot of guys come through there. But he's your prototypical pro quarterback. I mean, he's got the size, he's got the arm strength, and he seems to have it between the ears. So
he seems to be a good guy too. As much as I say that, he does seem to be a pretty good dude. And I think he's got a big future too. And I think it'll be cool to watch him. But I really wish we would have figured out if we could have all picked everybody else except Mac Jones to see if Blake would have went Mac Jones. I should have done that.
No chance.
I may send Trevor Lawrence a graduation gift just because I'm so happy to see him go.
Good riddance.
Yeah.
Did you send one Hunter Renfrow?
just to be replaced by the monster that Will was talking about. But I guess my pick for quarterback is going to be any of the option quarterbacks out there, baby. Let's go. Give me Navy. Give me Army. Give me I would have said Georgia Tech, but give me those guys that run the option. I can't tell you their names because, they run the option. So, but that's why I love them so much. So I'm going to go with the option quarterbacks. I would go with Mars Hills, but I think he's already been picked for the defensive side of the ball. But
he runs a pretty smooth offense too.
There you go. Well, let's go to running backs. I think, Blake, you're the man when it comes to our running backs. So I'll let you make those picks.
All right, let me go ahead and get this out of the way because I'm not a homer, unlike some of you guys. But I'm taking Naji Harris. Any man of that size with that speed and that agility is going to make my list. I don't care who he plays for. The play that really made me respect him was during the game where he hurdled the guy running full speed and never lost stride. Like
Which game?
The only other,
that's been like 3 or 4 times.
I don't know. I guess it was his most recent one, but the only other guy who can move like that with that power and that agility is Derrick Henry, and he's, in my opinion, he's a mini Derrick Henry, and I think he made the smart choice of coming back to Alabama, and I think he made himself a lot more money when he gets drafted in this next year. Next on my list, I am going to be a homer, but this guy's really good. Tank Bigsby. He was a true freshman running back at Auburn this year. He came in and started about half of the year, and he had over 800 yards, and he was tough to bring down. And this guy, he has made all of Auburn other running backs enter the portal, the transfer portal, because they know that this guy, being a true freshman, he's going to be there for the next 2 years, and nobody's going to have a chance to unseat him as Auburn's starting running back. Also, I have an honorable mention for my running backs. For my third running back, it's going to be the three-headed monster coming out of Mars Hill. You've got Peyton Higgins, Hunter Kilpatrick, and Justice McDaniel. Those guys, Mars Hill has got a great passing game and a great quarterback, but they would never have to pass the ball because you've got your fast guy and you've got your bruiser and you've got your breakaway speed guy with agility. And those guys, they got it done for Mars Hill all year long. So I wanted to give those guys a shout out.
They were solid.
All right, Will, give us your tight ends, I believe, right?
Yeah, the tight ends. I think in any normal world, it would be ridiculous to not go with Kyle Pitts. He'll be maybe a top 5, top 10 at least, draft pick coming up out of Florida. Dude is just a mismatch nightmare. Seems to be wide receiver speed, running routes, but as the size of a tight end. So I think we've got to go with him. He ripped Alabama pretty good. I think he ripped everybody except the bowl game when he sat out, which, don't blame him there because he's getting his millions in a couple months. The other one that I'm going to go with, I'm going to be a homer again, and I'm going to go with Jahil Billingsley out of Alabama.
The kick returner.
Yes, because, Saban said that he believes he's the only tight end that he's ever heard of that's returned punts or returned kickoffs. And I think he's a whole lot like O.J. Howard, Irv Smith. He's kind of that Kyle Pitts. He's just a mismatch guy. And I think in today's spread, even in – which I don't know how well those guys will do in the NFL because they're not necessarily – I don't know how well they'll block. But just setting up a nightmare in the spread, man, it's like putting another receiver on the field. So I think those two guys, Kyle Pitts is great. I think Billingsley will get there. And will end up being one of the top ones to come out of Alabama as well, especially if we keep throwing it the way we are. So those are my two.
I'm really worried about Ohio State's tight ends because they had 2 that were dominant against Clemson.
Yep. But guy's last name is Ruckert. He's really good for Ohio State.
He's the one.
And there was a second one. 2 of them scored a touchdown. I don't remember what the other guy's name was, but
Ruckert was the one that boxed the DB out and just grabbed it out of his hands. Like he was like 6'4", 6'5". It looked like a high school basketball player playing middle school girls.
What I understand is that they didn't really play that much. I mean, they didn't throw to them that much during the regular season, and so it kind of caught Clemson off guard, so maybe they don't have that against us.
Well, Ohio State didn't play much at all the regular season, so that makes it a little easier. So
Sorry,
there you
Bryce.
go. All right. Benjamin, give us my favorite offensive position. I think your favorite may be wide receivers.
Well, I mean, you go past people, you might have to say Travis Creasy, but but he's not currently on the field anymore. But I guess two that I mentioned that are kind of nemesis more or less is the one coming up this week. Olave, I think is his name for Ohio State. We're gonna have to do something with him, and hopefully we'll be able to shut him down. I'm assuming Surtain will probably be on him some. But he was good. Florida's Tony, y'all said Pitts earlier, but Tony was a part of that game too and was pretty tough to defend. I think he did pretty good all year. And then obviously two Alabama players. One didn't get to finish the season, but certainly would have been anybody would take. And I think he's going to go pretty high on the draft. If he goes this year, I assume he will probably go this year. But Jalen Waddle, was solid kick returner and everything for Alabama, but just an outstanding receiving core. And of course, you cannot leave off Devontae Smitty, the Slim Reaper. You can't leave him off because he won the Maxwell, the Biletnikoff, the Walter Camp, the Heisman Trophy. And I sat there and thought, man, I feel bad. That he's sitting next to Mac Jones. One of them has to lose. But at the same time, there were so many yards that he got. Obviously, he got a lot of Mac Jones's yards for him because he would throw a short screen or, just a short little pat. He'd break a tackle and go, And so he did a lot of the work to even get Mac Jones's yards. But just an awesome season. Proud of the kid. I think for me, his speech was just awesome from the standpoint of, look, you may not be the biggest, you may not be the fastest, but put your mind to stuff and you can do it. And I thought that was a pretty cool message that he sent out to the kids. And just to see his community, see his dad, might have got a little emotional watching his mom and dad and his community get excited for him. But that was just a really cool thing.
It really spoke to Ben when he talked about you may not be the biggest or the.
He really did. It's right there.
Maybe me too. Speaking of Devontae, probably the moment that I kind of go back to, and as a coach, you see a Heisman moment as different. And probably, I think it was the Rose Bowl. One of Alabama's receivers, I can't remember if it was Mechie or Billingsley, catches the ball across the middle. And Devontae's over on the left and looks back at him and basically waves him this way, come this way so that he can go block for him. And he springs him. He may have even scored on the play. But, as a coach, when it comes to receivers, I tell them, hey, you want us to throw you the ball, you better get out there and block when it's running. Or you better get out there and block when you knock out the ball. Because that immediately makes me go, hey, we need to throw that guy the ball when you're working hard. So I think that's a pretty solid team, fellas. Did we miss any picks that we were supposed to make? I was going to come back.
We didn't mention the coach of the year, and that'd be obviously Travis Creasy would be my pick on that. Winning the championship.
Coach Higgins, man, come on. Coach Higgins. I do think it's quite funny that Nick Saban, people just, he's not even on the radar for coaches of the year. He doesn't even get brought up for them. And it's just people, that's how good he is. They're just well, he's who he is, and well, if I had 5 stars, I could coach. Well, isn't recruiting a part of coaching as well at the college level? But anyways, I think my moment of the year, if I had to pick one, is probably Mechie, Oh Canada, lighting that dude up. I mean,
it was rough.
I think I'm still trying to figure out what happened to him. Who was that? And what train was it? Did you catch the number?
So the real question, though, is what's the worst moment of the year? Not for you personally, but just this is the most moment of the football season. Because I've got one. Y'all got anything?
Oh, mine's the first play of playing that team that Alabama should never have to play, ever. Tennessee. when Jalen
Gotcha.
Waddle got hurt. I wasn't even watching. I literally
yeah.
get the update on my phone. I was like,
Yeah,
like, Khan in Star Trek. Khan! I mean, I was on my boss's front porch at his daughter's birthday party, and I was like, Vols! I told them, I said, if Alabama doesn't win the national championship, then y'all can take full credit for that because
it'd be him.
Yeah. So there you go.
Well, mine
What was yours, Ben? Yeah.
Mine was the Liberty Coastal Carolina debacle at the end. I mean, like, that's the most, like,
The death of
how
football.
could you let, where the guy's trying not to score and his own person tries to push him into the end zone and he fumbles the ball when they're just trying to run the clock out. I'm like, that is just, I mean, I can imagine that I would have probably died of a heart attack if I was the coach, because not because I was scared, but because I would have been so angry at that moment. Like, how do you do that? Anyway, of course, the coach, it's partly the coach's fault because he's telling him not to score. And anyway.
One of my good friends from Freed, he was actually my interface leader coaches for Coastal Carolina. And so Freed is kind of really all of my timeline on Twitter, Facebook on Saturdays has been all cheering for Coastal. And if you haven't seen their after game celebrations, they have coaches that just make up a celebration, and they had Stone Cold come in and stunner a Gamecock or the other team's mascot. That's
funny.
It's awesome stuff. And then of course they're the Christians versus mullets, the Mormons versus mullets. I mean, all of their branding stuff is phenomenal. So shout out to the Coastal Carolina mullets.
It's funny.
Blake, you got a worse moment?
And I got a bunch of worse moments being an Auburn fan.
He's an Auburn.
My best moment is probably the firing of Gus Malzahn.
Oh,
but it's a new day on the Plains. We got a good coach, and we got some. I think we're going to turn things around. But I've got five worsts of the season, and it's the loss to Georgia, the loss to Texas A&M, which were expected. But the worst of the season is a loss to South Carolina. Good grief! That is.
It wasn't even close either. It wasn't.
That's the low of the lows. Yeah, we were never in the game. So
I do have a best moment, and it would have to be that Alabama's kicker was up for kicker of the year, Will Riker.
They just couldn't give it to him. They just couldn't give it to him.
He didn't win it, but Alabama had a better kicker than Auburn this year, statistically.
That's amazing.
Statistically, I'll give you that.
Statistically, that's why I said statistically. Who knows what's going to happen with him in the next year? But at least this year, statistically, he was.
I think my worst moment for Auburn was when Seth Williams dropped that wide open pass in the Iron Bowl, man. It was the exact same play that Devontae had caught. I mean, it was almost the exact same schematically, and it hits him. And it's just like, as a coach, obviously I'm an Alabama fan, but I was just like, there's no hiding either. There's no
oh man, he got in my way. I mean,
you're in the opposing team's stadium. You're in the middle of the field, and it's just and
the next player was 20 yards away.
Yeah, I mean, it's a touchdown. Easy.
One of Bo Nix's good throws this year. Speaking
of throws, how about that throwing the cleat? Wasn't that at least your national championship hopes didn't die with your own player standing up and chunking a cleat 20 yards, which at the very least you have to know is a delay of game. Even if you don't get the 15-yarder, it's a delay of game.
They dubbed it the clog in the fog. It was really foggy that night. The clog in the fog.
The best part of that whole thing, did you hear Mullen's response to it? He said after he watched the film, he goes, he was just celebrating and he pumped his hand and the cleat fell out of it.
That's what I saw. So
the cleat of defeat is what it should have been.
That was a stretch right there. For sure.
Well, guys, y'all got anything else you'd like to throw out there? Any honorable mentions? Any hot takes?
I do have an honorable mention.
Yes.
Auburn has a 6'6", 300-pound tight end. His name is J.J. Pegues, a.k.a. Ham Newton. That guy's a beast.
Piggies or piggies?
Pegues, but you can call him Piggy because he's a large man.
He is a big old fella.
We need to have our BATify all-name team.
He'd be on it.
Just shut her down.
Be there.
Ham Newton, man. That's right up there with the hefty lefty, man. That's well, if you guys don't have anything else, I appreciate your time being on with us. We'll catch you guys next week, and we may have run out of sports things to talk about by then. But hope you're all having a great week.
And everyone will be thankful.
Yes, and let us know if there's any way that we can help you. Have a good one.
December 7th, 1941 is a day that our grandparents and great-grandparents might recall vividly. Thousands of brave individuals answered the call to enlist and serve their country. Those back home waited and also served by providing essential support. Since then, veterans have served in the Korean War, the Vietnam War, Desert Storm, Operation Enduring Freedom, and the current ongoing global military operations. It's no surprise that our veterans have paid a huge price for the freedoms that we cherish. Serenity Counseling is honored to serve those who have served through their Renewed Warriors program. If you are a veteran who struggles with post-traumatic stress, or maybe you love a veteran who is struggling with post-traumatic stress, it can often be hard to talk about. Drug therapy can often feel like a Band-Aid. This program, the Renewed Warriors program, is free. Renewed Spirits is currently recruiting veterans for their equine-assisted support group, working with horses outside in the open air. Give them a call or check out their website for more information and to be a part of this group. They'll let you know the details. All you have to do is report for duty. The horses are very good at helping, but you have to be in their presence for it to work. Give the counselors at Serenity Counseling a call, 256-263-6367, or at their website, serenitycounseling.shoals.org. Serenity Counseling is located at 1954 Jackson Road in Florence, Alabama. Serenity Counseling, where hope is given and healing begins.
Thanks for joining Ben, Travis, and Will on the Helping Healing Humor podcast. Make sure to go to benandtravis.com for more content